On August 9th, 1976, fishermen in Miami's Dumfoundling Bay made a grim discovery: a 55-gallon steel fuel drum floating in the water. When police pulled the container from the bay near North Miami Beach, they found the decomposing remains of a human body. Heavy chains were coiled around the drum, which had been punctured with holes in a clear attempt to make it sink. The body inside had been dismembered, its legs sawed off to fit, and the cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation. Fingerprints confirmed the victim was John Handsome Johnny Roselli, 71, a man whose life had been a masterclass in navigating the 20th century's most violent and powerful secret societies. Welcome back to James on the Mob. I'm James Jenkins, your host and narrator. In this episode, we cover a man who operated under the deceptively simple business card title of strategist. Johnny Roselli was a silky smooth playboy who moved from the brutal bootlegging wars of Al Capone's Chicago outfit to the boardrooms of Golden Age Hollywood, where he socialized with studio moguls. He was the Chicago mob's chief representative in Las Vegas, overseeing the massive skim from casinos, and later the behind-the-scenes broker for the sale of those same casinos to billionaire Howard Hughes. Most significantly, Roselli became the primary liaison between the American Mafia and the Central Intelligence Agency in a series of clandestine plots to assassinate Cuban leader Fidel Castro. His unique value was his ambassador status, his ability to get more done with charm and guile than others did with violence. However, this same unique quality, when applied to testimony before the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, also known as the Church Committee, transformed him from an invaluable asset into a fatal liability. By breaking the code of silence shared by both the mob and the intelligence world, Roselli became, in the words of an FBI summary, a public source of embarrassment to La Cosa Nostra. His brutal murder was the underworld's response to his final and most public act. The man who would become Handsome Johnny was born Filippo Sacco in the town of Esperia, Lazio, Italy, on July 4, 1905. His father, Vincenzo Sacco, had immigrated to the United States first. In 1911, at the age of 6, Filippo and his mother, Maria Antonia Pascale Sacco, followed, joining Vincenzo in the Boston, Massachusetts area and settling in nearby Somerville. His life in America was marked by early hardship. His father died in 1918 when Filippo was just 13 years old. His criminal career began shortly thereafter. At age 17, on September 14, 1922, Sacco was arrested on federal narcotics charges in Massachusetts. Facing serious prison time, he fled the state. He first went to New York for 3 months before heading west to the burgeoning criminal hub of Chicago. In Chicago, Filippo Sacco underwent a metamorphosis and adopted a new, more elegant identity, John Roselli. This was not a random alias, but a curated act of reinvention that signaled his future ambitions. He chose the name in honor of the 15th century Italian Renaissance sculptor Cosimo Roselli, whose signature he had seen and admired on paintings. This choice prefigured the gentleman gangster and silky smooth playboy persona he would later perfect. To solidify this identity, he would later use forged documents to support a false U.S. birth, claiming to have been born Giovanni Roselli in Chicago on June 4, 1905. Roselli did not linger in Chicago. In 1924, he moved to Los Angeles. This move notably occurred before Al Capone or Frank Nitti had consolidated full control of the Chicago outfit. He immediately immersed himself in California's most lucrative racket, bootlegging. On July 8, 1924, he pleaded guilty to bootlegging beer using the name James Roselli. He quickly rose from a small-time operator to become a top truck driver and key henchman for Tony Conero, the king of the Western rum runners. Roselli was not just muscle, he was a strategist. He was given the special task of bribing and securing the loyalty of Orange County officials, which opened up their ports for Conero's liquor imports from Canada and Mexico. When Conero fled to Canada in 1926 to escape a bootlegging sentence, Roselli went independent, expanding his rackets into prostitution and gambling. It was during this period that he began his long-standing working relationship with Jack Dragna, the Sicilian-born kingpin of the Los Angeles crime family. Roselli's effectiveness and polish on the West Coast brought him to the attention of the era's most powerful mobster. Roselli first met Al Capone in 1927 while on a trip to Chicago to attend the famous Jack Dempsey-Gene Tunney boxing match. That night, he attended a party at Capone's headquarters in the Metropole Hotel. Capone, who possessed an eye for criminal talent second to none, recognized Roselli's unique potential. The two met again, this time at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. In 1928, Capone formally invited Roselli to Chicago and gave him a role in the Chicago outfit. His assignment was to be the outfit's honorary counsel and point man on the West Coast. His official job was to act as the liaison between the Chicago outfit and the Los Angeles family, then run by Joseph Ardizzone and later Jack Dragna, monitoring Capone's investments and ensuring smooth cooperation. A primary part of Roselli's role was to cultivate relationships within the film industry hierarchy. He did so with remarkable success, becoming an enigmatic and charismatic socializer. He was seen dating movie stars like Jean Harlow and later Marilyn Monroe, playing golf with studio heads and dining with figures like Tarzan creator Edgar Rice Burroughs. His most important industry relationship was with Harry Cohn, the notoriously difficult head of Columbia Pictures. Roselli served as Cohn's advisor on his Gangster pictures, and in a move that cemented his value, arranged a large, fast loan for the studio mogul from East Coast mobster Abner Longy Zwillman. He also used his political influence to benefit his underworld allies. When Frank L. Shaw became the mayor of Los Angeles in 1933, establishing a notoriously corrupt administration, Roselli positioned himself as the key liaison between the mayor's office and the various gangs paying bribes. This maneuver helped solidify his longtime associate, Jack Dragna, as the preeminent mob boss in Los Angeles. Roselli's connections were soon leveraged in one of the biggest extortion plots in Hollywood history. This was a multi-million-dollar campaign by the Chicago outfit to extort money from the major motion picture studios. The scheme worked by gaining control of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees Union, better known as IATSE. The outfit installed George Brown as the union's president and used Willie Byoff, a Chicago pimp, as the primary enforcer and collector. Roselli, as the outfit's man on the ground in Hollywood, aided Byoff and served as the syndicate's collector. Together, they extorted millions from the studios by threatening a general strike of projectionists and stagehands that would paralyze the entire American film industry. The scheme collapsed when Byoff, facing his own legal troubles, squealed on his partners. In 1942, Roselli was indicted on federal labor racketeering charges alongside Brown and Byoff. In 1943, while he was briefly and inexplicably serving in the U.S. Army, from which he would receive an undesirable discharge, Roselli was convicted. He served a prison sentence until his release in 1947. Upon his release, Roselli's parole stipulated that he find legitimate employment. His old friend, film producer Brian Foy, gave him a job at the small independent Eagle Lion Studios. This legitimate job provided the perfect cover. Though he received no formal credit, Roselli acted as a key creative figure and producer for two dark, gritty, and critically respected film noirs: Cannon City, 1948, a prison escape movie, and He Walked by Night, 1948 also, a police procedural. This role as producer at Eagle Lion and later Monogram Studios allowed him to maintain his foothold in Hollywood while he simultaneously expanded his real estate business interests for the mob. When Roselli returned to Los Angeles after prison, the underworld there was in turmoil. He found himself embroiled in a battle for power between his longtime ally, LA boss Jack Dragna, and the ambitious, volatile Mickey Cohn, who had been a protege of the recently murdered Bugsy Siegel. Roselli, as the Chicago outfit's representative, was firmly allied with Dragna. His relationship with Bugsy Siegel had been that of a contemporary and business partner. Records show that Roselli, Siegel, and Meyer Lansky all held a stake in the Continental Press wiring wire service. His primary conflict, however, was with Capone, who was challenging the established mob hierarchy that Roselli and Dragna represented. In the mid-1950s, Roselli shifted his focus from the declining mob scene in Hollywood to the fast-growing and highly profitable gambling mecca, Las Vegas. By 1956, he had officially become the chief representative for both the Chicago outfit and the Los Angeles family in Las Vegas. His superiors, Sam Giancana and Tony Accardo, believed Roselli could get the job done with his famous charm and guile. His primary function was to ensure that the mob bosses in Chicago, Los Angeles, and other territories received their fair share of the burgeoning casino revenues through skimming, that is, the taking of cash revenues before it was officially counted. He was responsible for overseeing the skim from the mob's most prized properties, including the Sands, the Desert Inn, and the Riviera. His first major deal in the city was securing construction financing for the Tropicana Hotel. Declassified records show the Tropicana was a web of hidden mob ownership interests, including New York's Frank Costello, Miami's Meyer Lansky, and significantly, New Orleans boss Carlos Marcello. During this period, Roselli was also close with Jimmy the Weasel Fradiano, an enforcer for the LA family who would later become a government informer soon after Roselli's death. Roselli ran his vast Vegas operations from suites at the Tropicana and the Desert Inn. FBI surveillance files from 1964 confirm his frequent registration at the Desert Inn, while listing his primary Los Angeles residence as 1333 South Beverly Glen Boulevard. Roselli's role as strategist was most fully realized in the mid-1960s when he helped pave the way for the reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes to purchase a string of mob-controlled casinos. The chain of events began in 1966 when Hughes holed up in the penthouse of the Desert Inn. When casino boss Mo Dalitz, a representative of the Cleveland mob, wanted the non-gambling billionaire removed to make room for high rollers, Hughes' right-hand man, Robert Mayhew, was tasked with handling the delicate situation. Mayhew, who knew Roselli, called him to mediate. This initial contact evolved into a buying spree. Roselli acted as the essential behind-the-scenes broker for the mob, facilitating the sale of the Desert Inn, the Sands, the New Frontier, and other properties to use. This so-called demobbing of Las Vegas was in reality a brilliant mob-orchestrated exit strategy. It allowed bosses like Meyer Lansky and Mo Dalitz and the Chicago outfit to sell their dirty assets for a massive, clean, and taxable windfall, correctly sensing that intense federal crackdowns were imminent. When Fidel Castro's Cuban Revolution succeeded in January 1959, one of his first acts was to shut down the lucrative mob-operated casinos in Havana. This move destroyed the mob's Caribbean cash cow. It created a powerful shared motive for Castro's removal among top mob bosses, including Roselli and his Chicago boss, Sam Giancana, and Santos Traficante Jr., the Tampa-based mob boss who had personally overseen the mob's Havana gambling operations, including the San Souci Casino. In August 1960, top CIA officials, including Deputy Director for Plans, Richard Bissell, and Office of Security Head, Sheffield Edwards, initiated a sensitive mission. Declassified documents, part of the family jewels cache, confirmed the mission required gangster-type action, and that the mission target was Fidel Castro. To maintain plausible deniability, the CIA used Robert Mayhew as a cutout. Mayhew was a former FBI agent, a CIA operative, and an aide to Howard Hughes, a man who already knew Roselli from his Las Vegas dealings. Mayhew was instructed to approach the syndicate appearing to represent big business organizations that wanted Castro dead due to lost gambling interests. Mayhew contacted Roselli in Las Vegas. Roselli, who would later tell Senate investigators he saw the mission as a patriotic endeavor, agreed to help. He immediately told Mayhew that he was not interested in any quid pro quo. Roselli stated that for a mission of this magnitude, he needed to involve his superiors. He arranged a meeting at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami Beach. There, he introduced Mayhew to two men, Sam Gold and Joe the Courier. Mayhew and his CIA handler, James O'Connell, who was also present, later identified these men as Chicago boss Sam Giancana and Tampa boss Santo Trafficante Jr. The plan centered on using 6 poison pills developed by the CIA's technical expert, Dr. Stanley Gottlieb. Trafficante, using his courier status and extensive network of contacts still inside Cuba, was to get the pills to a high-level contact in Castro's entourage who could poison the leader's food. This initial phase of the operation was run by Roselli's CIA handler, James O'Connell, of the Office of Security. The attempts all failed. One plan to have Castro's lover, Marita Lorenz, administer the poison failed when she confessed the plot to Castro himself. Another attempt to poison Castro's chocolate milkshake failed when the poison capsule broke open after being frozen to an ice tray. This phase of the operation was abruptly canceled in May 1961, immediately following the failed Bay of Pigs invasion of April 1961. The plot was revived in April 1962, this time under the umbrella of the Kennedy administration's aggressive anti-Castro program, Operation Mongoose. Roselli was turned over to a new, more aggressive case officer, William Bill Harvey. Harvey, who met Roselli under the alias William Walker, was the head of the CIA's Executive Action, or Assassination Program, codenamed Project ZR Rifle. Harvey and Roselli continued the plots, working with Cuban exiles on commando missions and dispatching new poison pills. Roselli, who felt in some way responsible for the Bay of Pigs invasion failure, was a more active participant, this time even having boats shot out from under him at least twice during raids on Cuba. This second phase was resumed despite Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy having discovered the initial CIA mafia plot in the spring of 1962. Upon learning of it, Kennedy angrily ordered the CIA to break contact with the mobsters. The agency, under Harvey, defied this order and continued the operation. This phase also failed and was finally terminated by the CIA in February 1963. Even as he was liaising with the CIA, Roselli's strategist skills failed him in his own backyard. From 1962 to 1966, he was a central figure in a high-stakes gin rummy cheating scam run out of the exclusive Friars Club of Beverly Hills, a private social club for Hollywood's elite. Roselli, a member in good standing, ran the scam with co-conspirators like Maurice Friedman, a Las Vegas casino owner. Using hidden peepholes and signaling systems, the conspirators fleeced wealthy club members, including actor Zeppo Marx of the famous Marx Brothers and Phil Silvers, who ironically starred in a show called Sergeant Bilko, out of an estimated $2 million. The scandal broke open when the FBI raided the club. On December 2, 1968, Roselli was convicted of conspiracy to cheat and was later fined $55,000. This high-profile conviction, combined with the government's knowledge of his illegal 1911 entry, gave federal agencies new leverage to deport him. This vulnerability made him a prime target for exploitation, first by the CIA contacts, who he threatened to expose to stop deportation, and later by congressional committees. The 1963 assassination of President John F. Kennedy created a vortex of theories that placed Roselli and his associates at its center. Two primary retaliation theories emerged. The first, and most prominent, was mob retaliation. The Kennedy administration, led by Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, was waging an unprecedented legal war on organized crime. This put bosses like Carlos Marcello, whom Robert Kennedy had personally deported to Guatemala, Santos Trafficante, and Roselli's own boss, Sam Giancana, under immense pressure. The House Select Committee on Assassinations concluded in 1979 that these three bosses, in particular, had the motive, means, and opportunity to have President Kennedy assassinated. The second theory was retaliation by Castro. This theory posits that Castro, having learned of the repeated CIA mafia assassination plots against him from his own sources, simply returned the favor by orchestrating Kennedy's death. This specific theory was in fact floated by John Roselli himself during his 1976 testimony. Theories also connected the plot to Jack Ruby, the man who murdered alleged assassin Lee Harvey Oswald. Ruby was not a lone nut, but a man with deep documented connections to the underworld of Giancana, Marcello, and Trafficante. Some reports even alleged that Roselli met with Jack Ruby in the fall of 1963. A more speculative theory, mentioned by figures like Joseph Bonanno, claims that Roselli was a second shooter in Dallas, firing from a storm drain on Elm Street, though this remains unsubstantiated. The convergence of these secrets, the mob, the CIA, and the JFK assassination, made Roselli one of the most sought-after witnesses in Washington. In June 1975, this powder keg was lit by a clear and brutal message. Roselli's partner, Sam Giancana, was shot to death in the basement of his Oak Park, Illinois home. The murder occurred just days before Giancana himself was scheduled to testify before the Senate's Church Committee. Giancana's murder was a message to shut up, but it seemingly had the opposite effect on Roselli. Already living in fear and perhaps sensing the Chicago outfit's old man, Tony Accardo, was cleaning house, Roselli made a fatal calculation. His only chance for survival was to talk to the government. He permanently left Los Angeles and Las Vegas, relocating to Miami, and he began to cooperate. On June 24th and September 22nd, 1975, Roselli testified before the Church Committee. He provided startling and detailed confirmation of the CIA mafia plots to kill Castro, publicly identifying his partners, Sam Giancana and Santos Trafficante. During this testimony, Senator Barry Goldwater, amazed at Roselli's detailed recall, asked if he had taken notes during the conspiracy. Roselli famously replied, "Senator, in my business, we don't take notes." On April 23, 1976, Roselli was recalled for a secret session by Senate investigators at the Carroll Arms Hotel in Washington, D.C. This time, the subject was the Kennedy assassination. It was here that he floated his theory that Castro had ordered the hit in retaliation. However, when pressed by committee staffer Michael Epstein if he possessed any facts to support this explosive supposition, Roselli replied, "No facts." Roselli's public testimony had signed his death warrant. In mid-July 1976, less than 2 weeks before he vanished, Roselli had had a dinner meeting with Santos Trafficante Jr. at the Landings restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. Federal investigators and underworld informants have long interpreted this as the mafia's Last Supper, a customary gesture of respect before executing a ranking wayward member. On July 28, 1976, Roselli, then 71 and suffering from emphysema, left the Miami home he shared with his sister, Edith Daigle. He told her he was going for a boat ride. He was never seen alive again. 2 days later, on July 30th, his car was found abandoned at the Miami International Airport. 10 days after he disappeared, Roselli's body was found. The discovery was made by fishermen in Dumfoundling Bay, a body of water near North Miami Beach, Florida. The classic mob hit had been meticulously planned. His body was stuffed into a 55-gallon steel fuel drum. To make him fit, his legs had been sawed off. His cause of death was asphyxiation. Heavy chains were coiled around the drum and holes were punched in its sides, all designed to make the barrel sink permanently. The killer's plan failed. The gases produced by the body's advanced decomposition in the Florida heat gave the drum just enough buoyancy to float to the surface. The discovery of Roselli's body coming so soon after his testimony and Giancana's murder sent shockwaves through Washington. The Senate, led by members like Senator Howard Baker, immediately pressured Attorney General Edward H. Levy to have the FBI investigate whether Roselli's death was directly connected to his testimony. Two primary theories emerged, but one carries the overwhelming consensus of law enforcement and historians. The first theory, CIA silencing. This theory posits that the CIA killed Roselli to prevent him from revealing more damaging secrets. Perhaps, as some speculated, facts about the JFK assassination before he could be recalled to testify again. This theory is largely discounted. Roselli's own friends and Miami homicide detectives pointed out that the method, a brutal classic dismemberment and barrel dumping, was signature mafia, not the clean work of an intelligence agency hit. Furthermore, Roselli had reportedly checked with the CIA, including his former handler, Bill Harvey, before his testimony, and they had told him to tell whatever he knew. The second theory, mob retaliation, is the overwhelming consensus. The evidence overwhelmingly indicates that Roselli was executed by his own organization for violating its most sacred code, Omerta, the vow of silence. Roselli shot his mouth off all over the place. He had broken the cardinal rule by talking to the government about mob business. In doing so, he became a public source of embarrassment to La Cosa Nostra. A high-ranking mafia figure was later quoted as saying, "When you're called before a committee like that, you have to go to your people and ask them what to do." Roselli not only did not come to us, he went before the committee. While federal investigators also suggested a secondary motive, that he was keeping more than his share of the Las Vegas skimming interest, the primary cause for the hit was his public testimony. The murder was a high-level collaborative effort sanctioned from the top of the Chicago outfit. The FBI investigation concluded the contract was sanctioned by the outfit's highest authority, its consigliere and ultimate boss, Tony Accardo. The operational order would have come from the outfit's street boss at the time, Joey Aiuppa. Because the murder occurred in Florida, it required the permission and likely cooperation of local boss Santos Traficante Jr. His last supper with Roselli at the landings strongly implies his direct knowledge and involvement. Roselli was reportedly lured onto a boat by an old friend and a third man from Chicago. The FBI summary of the case named the likely killers as Chicago enforcers Frank the German Schweiz and Vincent the Saint Insero. So goes the story of Johnny Roselli. Roselli was one of the most enigmatic and influential figures in American organized crime. A smooth and sophisticated fixer whose reach extended from Hollywood studios to Las Vegas casinos and the covert operations of the Cold War. Roselli reinvented himself in Chicago before rising to prominence as a diplomatic bridge between the outfit and the movie industry. In the 1950s, he played a key role in the Las Vegas skim, helping the mob secure deep financial influence over the Strip. His most controversial chapter came in the early 1960s, when he was recruited by the CIA to participate in plots aimed at assassinating Fidel Castro, an operation that later drew Roselli into the gravity of the Kennedy assassination inquiries. Between 1975 and 1976, he became a crucial witness before multiple Senate committees, including the Church Committee and the House Select Committee on Assassination. But before he could testify further, Roselli disappeared. His body was later found stuffed inside a 55-gallon drum floating in a bay in Florida. His life and death remain a haunting reminder of the dangerous intersection between organized crime, U.S. intelligence, and the untold stories that shape 20th century America. And in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on handsome Johnny Roselli. Do you think he was killed by the CIA or by the mob? I'm James Jenkins. If you've enjoyed this episode on Johnny Roselli, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share, and be on the lookout for another episode of James on the Mob. And remember, life is short, so don't whack it off. See yous.